When you have a diverse workplace, you can benefit from multitude of perspectives. You can get better products and better innovations because people come with different ideas and different experiences.
Welcome to Heja Framtiden. This is an episode in English, and I'm here at Helo GT30 with Lavie. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Is it correct to say that you are Learning and Diversity Manager?
Yeah, at Tobii.
Tobii.
Correct, yes.
And we'll get into what Tobii is, because I think it's an amazing company. But first of all, let's get your background. Where are you from?
It's always quite complicated. So basically, my parents are coming from a diverse background. I'm Spanish, Portuguese, Sicilian, Polish, and a bit Moroccan too. I was brought up in Tel Aviv. I've lived in Paris, lived 6 years in Helsinki, and now about 2 years in Stockholm.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is where I'm from, and I grew up in a very multicultural environment, in which you're exposed to many different things or many different behaviors at basically all the time, which can at times be frustrating or benefiting, depends how you look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you studied now in Helsinki.
Right.
What did you study there?
So in Helsinki, I took master courses. Basically, I did my master's in the Media Lab. It's a combo of art, design, computer science, and psychology, all together bundled into one degree. And I also almost finished another master's in the business school, but I wasn't in the mood to have another thesis, so I stopped there.
And then you were approached by Tobii, or did you go to Sweden before?
No, I had a job in Helsinki where I was a consultant. Then I worked there for a bank, and there was a merger, so I was offered a promotion in Stockholm, and that's when I came here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's get into what Tobii actually is, because it's well, the short story is it's a eye tracking company.
Eye tracking, yeah, correct. We do eye tracking. We have different kind of products. I think maybe one of our when we look at Tobii, we're trying to think of it as more of a place where you can combine the heart and the technology together, because some of the products we do, for example, in Tobii Dynavox, are diverse by nature. So we are enabling people with different kind of paralysis or disabilities to have a voice. They can communicate with their eyes using our devices. Other applications of our eye tracking can be into gaming, and can also be into medical purposes or manufacturing, training, and so on. The use is quite diverse.
Consumer insights.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, what you're looking at, what people are seeing when they're going to the store, retail, and so on.
I was interested with you because of the work you do with diversity and inclusion in the company. And just to begin that discussion, what is a Learning and Diversity Manager? What is your role?
Right. So these are two full-time jobs, basically. I'm doing both learning and development and diversity and inclusion. So these are two different things. Maybe before we start talking about it, maybe I should also give a short disclaimer. We're two guys talking about diversity and inclusion. I'm a foreigner, a person of color, gay, Jewish. So, okay, maybe I
think we covered many of the...
Yeah, but just for those who are listening, there is some sort of oddity in this of two men talking about it. So what we do, diversity and inclusion is like one part where we talk about what people are we having in the workplace. And I think what's important to remember that when you have a diverse workplace, you can benefit from multitude of perspectives. You can get better products and better, let's say, innovations because people come with different ideas and different experiences. But it also has another downside, which is also a plus side, like everything. when you know that there is another person with opposing perspectives, you're kind of getting prepared better for it. And as a result, like through this discourse or through these arguments, you're able to create something that's a bit better or different. Because if you were to have a group of the same people, you would basically probably having the same kind of product. But when you are having different perspectives or people from with different experiences, then essentially you're able to create something that is maybe not what you just had in mind, but maybe something that can do more or can do things differently.
If I'm about to go into a boardroom where people are very unlike me and diverse, I will have to prepare more because I have to make a stronger case for myself.
Correct.
Okay.
So, for example, let's take a very simple example, like of a soap dispensing product. So there was a company that developed the soap dispensing, and you could just put your hand underneath, and it would dispense the soap, right? And it worked really well until a black person put their hand underneath it, and it didn't dispense it. So it's just like taking into consideration different kind of people that would probably be using your product. But also, if you think about it, when you're developing a computer game, for example, would you be able to represent different people, or would you be sticking to cliches?
But I mean, in your everyday work life, what is your mission from Tobii?
Yeah, I think my mission from Tobii is maybe more of my mission. The older I get, the more angry I become. You're exposed more to racism. You're more sensitive or prone to hear about sexism or other issues that take place in the office. It doesn't have to be Tobii. It can be any place you were in. I think in Helsinki it was much more prevalent than in Stockholm. It was much more narrow-minded or xenophobic, so to speak. You just got everything to your face. And at first when I came to Sweden, I thought, I probably wouldn't need to work on people's behavior and change it so much. Maybe people already have the values in the right place. But unfortunately, men are men, and misogyny takes place everywhere. And it's something that, or other issues such as immigration or ethnicity, these are burning matters. And to my surprise, I also need to work on those in changing behavior. So if you ask what's my mission, I would say finding the hot spots, basically, or the burning issues in our company or in society and address them. So we are allowing people to go through intervention programs, and it's more like planting seed. But in order for this to really be successful, we're not just planting seed in just with a workshop that people go through sessions with psychologists and coaching, but we also work with the society outside Tobii. So we work with lesbians who tech, or we work with women of color in tech. And I think it's important, especially in Sweden, because there's a lot of discussion, for example, around women, but there is a lack of discussion around women of color. How many women of color are there in senior positions in Sweden? Maybe not that many. And I think also there's maybe a bit of fear in Sweden to talk about it, about ethnicity, about color, about immigration, about these things. And people just say, everything is great here. And it really isn't. So maybe my mission would be to make people feel comfortable talking about these issues, being who they are, and to reduce the cases to bare minimum. I'm pretty positive that there'll always be someone saying something wrong. But if I'm able to change others' opinions so they could affect that person, then I did my job. For all those, let's speak like maybe more of a men issues. I'll take them, for example, now. For the men who listen here. Yesterday, I wore a skirt to work. Now, it sounds like a very simple thing to do. But even being gay and working in this field and being acquainted with pretty much these topics quite well, I felt uncomfortable. And the moment I wore this skirt, all these biases or toxic masculinity came to my mind, and I started thinking, what would the other people think? What would the senior manager think? What would this person say? And the moment you wear it, it really, all the society rules suddenly are imposed on you, and you think, okay, shit, I'm part of this, and it's very difficult to let go. It's so much easier to say, it's nothing, you can wear it, that's not a problem. But when you walk down the street, and I've lived, for example, in Västra Skogen, and I tried it again earlier, I got some very angry looks. It was very uncomfortable, also from the security guys. So I can't.
Also, I mean, it was not just in your head; it was.
Yeah.
Both.
So depends where you go, right? And then I live in Hornstull now. It's like different than Västerskogen, obviously. And there, it's like, yeah, it's pretty calm, it's chilled. So it's like, also, where can I go wearing that skirt? So when somebody tells me, yeah, it's really safe here in Sweden. Yeah, would you wear this in Rinkeby? And if you were wearing this skirt, if you were to wear it, would you be able to refrain from saying, yeah, I'm wearing it because it's an exercise I'm doing? Or would you say immediately, oh, I'm not gay? Would you be able to just walk around as a man and realize that you don't need to have a vagina to wear a skirt? And the toxic masculinity is a thing. It's like, this is such a small thing to do, but it takes quite a lot of mental or cognitive effort. Yeah.
Yeah, my youngest son is 2.5, soon 3, and he got to go to H&M the other day, and he picked out a really beautiful butterfly skirt dress.
Yeah.
On his own, and we bought it for him, and now he's wearing it to preschool. And I'm just, when I go with him there, I just hope that not too many people acknowledge it, because if people keep saying, "Oh, it's such a nice skirt, it's so cute," and laughing, then he would probably hate it. But now it's just like, "Oh, nice skirt," or a nice dress.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, it's a butterfly dress." And I love this age because it's super cute. But then something happens around maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
When they realize that they should be warriors. And
yeah, I think it's what we see in the media, or what the parents say, or the grandma say. So if you sit around the Christmas table or whatever dinner table, and there's an old person,
one comment.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face, and it perpetuates the stigma. So that's why we also, when somebody say, "Oh, but they're all don't say anything." I mean, if I don't say anything, then the kid around the table would think it's legit to behave that way. Yeah, so it's also to correct that behavior.
But did you come here yesterday?
Yeah, by mistake.
Because the
on my calendar
receptionist,
it was for yesterday. I checked the emails like, oh, Friday. Why did I put it on Thursday? So it was my bad.
because the receptionist was like, "There was a guy here yesterday,
Yeah.
asking for you." I'm like, "Okay." There was a guy in a skirt. I'm like, "Wow,
yeah.
who's that? It sounds really interesting." Must be a listener wanting to track me down.
A fan.
Yeah, a fan.
Yeah. No,
Stalker.
Yeah, so yesterday I tried the skirt exercise to see. And funny enough, there was...
But you still call it an exercise. Don't you just want to wear it?
That's a good question. There are some dresses in monkey that I really like. I did wear the skirt sometimes, but wearing to work is an exercise for me. Yes, because it's different
in the corporate context.
I'll give an example. So when you're gay, people say, "Oh, yeah, but what's the issue? It's not a problem." But I worked. My previous manager in another company told me when I was a consultant. He whispered in my ear and said, "Hey, come look at this on Facebook. I found our client." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he said, "I think he's gay." And what am I supposed to do with this information? And of course,
But did he know that you were gay?
No, he was also quite religious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this puts you in a very awkward situation. That's like one slap in the face. And then you get other comments, anywhere else you go. So you always think, can I come out? And you always have to come out repeatedly. And that creates a very uncomfortable feeling because you need to foster always this safe space at work. That's another issue. Where a safe space, for example, can be before you judge the other person's thoughts or ideas or comments. Try to think what they've experienced, where they're coming from, why they're speaking this way, and think about yourself in that context. Why would you behave in this way? What would lead you to this reaction or to this result?
So, what is the best way to really create an inclusive work environment?
Yeah, that's. I don't want to share with you my Nobel Prize. Unfortunately, the research is taking place as we speak. And I think the first step is being aware of having a bias. And one way is to do some exercises, like taking that skirt, is that you see that that toxic masculinity, for example, is a thing. But bias takes place in another way. Like if I were to say, close your eyes and imagine that you're rushing to an airplane and the pilot says, Hi, welcome, please have a seat. And they go back to their cockpit, and you take the flight, you land somewhere in a restaurant, there's a couple kissing or hugging. And I say, open your eyes. And then how many of you thought that the pilot is a black woman? How many you imagine the same-sex couple in the restaurant kissing and hugging? So this is already a way to spot it, like we don't think about it. And I think if we were brought up in Sweden maybe 20 years ago, probably there weren't that many people of color or black people around you. So everything that you learned about it was from media or from computer games, which is by the way, another issue. So this is a way to understand that, okay, even in my workplace and everything I do or read, there is a bias taking place. So when you go to work, think how you can benefit from another perspective. Maybe with a person that you disagree with, maybe with a person that is not like you. For example, a woman could be a good start. They're a team of gamers. Usually they're only men. So that's another thing.
Yeah, and it's especially evident when you raise children. Try to find books that are different. It's very difficult. And movies and games, it's very tiresome.
Yeah.
Like why are all the lead characters male?
Men. Yeah. Why do they all need to have a penis or vagina? Also, that's another thing. Like, why do we need to know the sex? It's more like to identify, I assume, with a person.
Well, the cartoon animals, they don't have penis or vagina, actually.
Right. But when you look at
not visibly
at the heroes out there, when will we be having a non-binary character, or when because all these the gender is a concept basically, and all these gender roles don't exist, and I think maybe in the future will be more fluid. But this is not to cancel or eliminate, to say that now we don't have women issues, because the patriarchy is still a thing. So this is something we still probably would need to address. And I hope that if you ask what is my future goal in like 20 years, that my role will become irrelevant. But I don't see this happening in a generation's time.
But why do you think a company like Tobii is so into this matter? Because, I mean, the CEO and founder, he's a white engineer man, just starting a company 18 years ago. Why has this become important for them?
We hire quite many foreigners, people from different nationalities. And at Tobii, we've internalized the fact that having a diverse workforce can be a strong force to deliver innovation. And to make this work, it's not just about hiring people from different places. It's also about making them feel at home and that they are welcome to be who they are. Basically, come as you are to work and be whoever you want to be. But it's not something that happens just by telling it or by writing a policy or by hiring foreigners. It's something that requires maintenance and work around it. This is why we do it.
Right, it's about the culture.
Yeah, it's about the culture that you have in place.
How can you build a culture like that? It takes time.
It takes time. So people also, that's a very common question. So what do you do?
Yeah.
I've built a maturity model, and it's other consultancy companies do that too, like BCG, PwC. I built our own, and it's phased. So phase 1, for example, would be, do we have all the policies and regulations in place? That's so easy to make. Then you start thinking, okay, do we have some awareness around it? Do we have grassroots initiatives that are in place? Do we have an intervention program? Is there a voice for employees to tell how they feel? So more like a broader survey measurement and so on. And is there a diversity group in place when we talk about grassroots initiatives? Can employees create their own initiatives? Yes, so we have like People Day. And then we're expanding this, so advancing. So phase 3. We would be looking at having a strong intervention program, changing behavior. We would be looking at complex pay gaps. We measure ethnicity and, of course, gender, not just man and woman. We're going to have a mutual mentorship program where basically senior leaders meet people from different backgrounds and kind of learn what it takes to advance in Sweden or in the workplace, and maybe be more aware towards what are the issues, what are the obstacles firsthand, rather than reading about it in a book or knowing that it's an issue somewhere in the world. Then I think maybe the ultimate goal would be to get value out of it. So it means expanding into different markets, being able to utilize diversity and inclusion practices in everyday processes, and so on. I think the best example is maybe Netflix, where they are now creating, a lot of trash, but also many series where the protagonist is a woman of color, where they talk about about things that were not discussed previously. Like there's a series called Typical. It's about a gay guy with a CP. Yeah, so
Atypical.
yeah. So there's already things changing, and I think they're taking a big role in changing the film industry, and that's a blessing.
You mentioned intervention. Is that if you realize that one employee has a sexist or racist behavior and that needs to change?
Yeah, that could be for one example, but that would maybe be more like a case-by-case basis. But when we do measurements, let's take the most basic measurement. When you look at the gender in the workplace in teams, and that you see that you have many teams where there are no men almost, then you think, okay, there is an issue there. We do something that's called bias-free recruitment, where managers are aware or learning how the bias works, sort of, and so that it would be more or less prone to make biased decision when recruiting people. But if it's something that's like there for a long time, then we need to say, okay, enough. Like there isn't a greater issue, and we need to maybe work on one's behavior, because they could be aware of the fact that they maybe have a bias or not, or know how it works. But we really need to conduct a change and making them believe that this is different. So, for example, the intervention program is quite extensive. It's like a social norms workshop and fast and slow, where we utilize the two systems, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And so people wouldn't be making those quick, rash decisions, rather think about more data-driven and communicate their decision, make it a bit more slow and thorough, meticulous, maybe less creative, but could maybe be a better decision. And then we do some group coaching and so on. So that's one intervention program that's in place.
I mean, many of these issues must land on the HR and recruitment table. Do they work with like anonymous applications, stuff like that? Or is it important to actually see that, okay, these are the applicants and we want more diversity in different ways? Right.
Just so I recap your question. So you mean that do we communicate that you have fewer men and you need to have women, or they can see the applicant's gender and name, so on?
Name, picture.
Right. So
race.
we really discourage applicants from sending pictures. Unfortunately, we work with this company called Team Taylor, and through this we manage our applications. And we already asked them to have a feature where you could hide the name. Where you studied, basically the degree itself can remain, but like where you studied is totally relevant, where you're from, age. But that's something they're currently working on. They have this feature enabled, but it doesn't really work. But we hope to have this in place as soon as possible.
Okay, so why is the university relevant?
Well, because when you look at research, and the moment the person is in the workplace, it doesn't matter where they studied. It apparently doesn't affect their performance whatsoever. So when Google compared Ivy League with other universities, didn't make any difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bias as well.
Yeah. Oh, he's
like,
great.
Oh, Harvard. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have, of course, employees that graduate from MIT, for example. But yeah, it's just another employee, basically. What you do is what counts, not where you graduated from. So that's something to remember. I also think another issue here, it's not just recruitment. There can be comments made by your peers. For example, you could hear in various workplaces, people would be saying, foreigners should be grateful for coming to Sweden. They should be paid less. Yeah. So the moment you're a foreigner and hearing that, you think, okay, well, this is one issue, right? So these are things that we also probably need to address. It's not just about the recruitment. That's, again, going back to the culture. How do we make sure people are not behaving this way? So we talk about how trust is formed. Babies, for example, would look 5 seconds longer at the person that speaks the native language versus a foreign accent. So this is preference still. Mm-hmm. They would prefer looking at the person that speaks their native language. But then when you look at kids who are 10 months old, then they would prefer playing with someone that has a native accent too. and befriend with them. So the whole process of becoming a friend with someone is already trust. So this is how trust is formed. This is why it's so tricky to say, yeah, I don't have a bias. But if you grew up in a very homogeneous environment, I'm sorry, but you're up for elimination. Yeah, that's an issue. So that's like to explain how it's formed.
And that must be really difficult in a workplace to sort of break down those barriers or those biases. But do you make sure that all the employees are aware of these biases?
It's a good question. I think we're starting soon launching this bias seminar where people learn about bias. I don't know if it's possible to make people so aware of all of their biases, but it's important that they would know when they could potentially occur. So, for example, in cases of stress, or in cases when you look at like your actions and review the history of your decisions, or when you start to communicate your decisions, like who you're going to recruit, then you can maybe start tracing some issues. I think it's not something that we really teach, like what kind of bias you have, rather give you tools that when this comes up, you would be able to spot it, or maybe your peers would be able to help you. Yeah, it's also very awkward maybe for a person to admit that they have a bias. If somebody has something against black, like he has a bad feeling, but it's not something that he does anything actively about. Maybe it's embarrassing to say that because this person grew up in an environment where there were no black people, and if they work on that, that's okay. But maybe they wouldn't need to communicate it to me. It's more about
it can be
tools.
unconscious, but also almost a physical reaction to a stranger.
Yeah. There's a story here that I heard. So my Swedish colleague told me that her friend's daughter, somebody was knocking on the door, and she was, I think, 5 years old. And she opened the door, and there was a black man, and he asked if mom's home. And she's looking at him, and she doesn't know what to do, and she's still looking. And she's like going to her mom and says, "Mom," she didn't know what to say, and she said, "There's a horse waiting for you by the door."
Horse?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. So for her,
it's the first thing that came to mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is lack of representation. This is, again, another issue. So I work, for example, with this women of color in tech here in Sweden. There is the co-founder or the founder is Mariam. And I asked her, so Mariam, why don't you also apply for positions like mine? Because you could really make a change, and you're a black woman here in Sweden. You could really make an impact. You already have a network of 100 women. And she said, well, they wouldn't hire me. I'm a black woman. They prefer hiring white women. And that's really weird. So still, it's like this fear, but maybe you don't really know our culture. But you don't really speak our language that fluently. And this is all nonsense. Yeah, I think it's more like if we had to come up with a campaign, people need to think, I am more. I am more than my gender, I am more than my color, I am more than my sexual orientation, ethnicity, and so on. And this is such a big thing. And of course, if you have an accent, passing the phone interview can be even more difficult, right? Because our brain cannot stop from processing what's this person's age, ethnicity, and then you would start thinking, when we get, like, for example, an Indian accent in a customer service, then immediately people start thinking, this is going to be bad service. That's the common reaction I hear. And this is, again, such
Are people going to think that we outsource the customer service to India?
As well, yeah. So our brains cannot stop from processing. And then we wonder, what does credibility sound like, right? It's, again, we are used to our own accent. We're used to seeing the same kind of people. But I admit that bias takes place with me, too. I went to Vårdcentralen, and I had a doctor's appointment. And the doctors there somehow didn't wear robes. They had this like ugly blue vest that I didn't know. I was like, okay. And when the person approached, it was an Indian woman my age. I'm 35. And I thought, she's probably the nurse.
Oh, really?
But she was the doctor. Because I'm so unused to seeing in Sweden people of color in, like, I don't know, maybe like these kind of positions. And maybe also there aren't that many still. But in a way, this is, where it took place. So it's good that you admit it to yourself and you think, okay, this is funny. Because it happens to us all.
So what is your best tip for making the world a better place?
Yeah. There's something I tell people all the time in and at work and outside work and everywhere is everybody wants to change the world. Nobody wants to change themselves. It's a quote. So whenever you think, we should be doing this or the government should be doing that, it starts with you. It's not about anybody writing a policy. It's not about anybody else doing something. It's about you making this change. It's about you taking a stand. It's about you standing up for somebody that their rights are taken from them. It's about you stepping down if you're overly represented and you're not necessary in that group. Go away. It's about that. And there's an article in the Huffington Post about toxic masculinity. Why did gay marriage did not save the gays, or something around that name, where you could really understand that the impact of the patriarchy also on men is immense. Gays are more likely to commit suicide. We're more judgmental towards each other. We're not a supportive community, as opposed to other, let's say, foreigners who live in the same kind of like areas and streets that support each other. We don't do that. We criticize each other too much. We say you're not masculine enough, you're too feminine. And then apparently those who are trying to be even more masculine, like by hitting the gym all the time, for example, or trying to say, I'm only mask for mask, and I'm super masculine, and I only do manly things and whatever. So they are more likely to commit suicide even more. We're more prone to cardiovascular problems. We're more prone for depression.
Really?
Yeah, society fucked us up so much, making us believe we are at fault, we're in error, we're broken. Yeah, so whenever somebody tells me, but everything is fine now, no.
So, do you think the judgment within the group is harder as well?
Yeah, also, because we are taught to believe.
So you could be frozen out if you're not playing by the rules inside the group. Yeah,
it's being femme isn't easy. Can't believe that this is an issue. I mean, you're gay and you understand that people can be very different, but it's again, I need to fit into the standards. I'll give another example very close to mine. So one of the guys I dated is when he told his parents that he's gay, his mom fainted. And then she said she wanted to commit suicide.
Wow, dramatic.
Yeah, that's very dramatic. And here in Sweden, there was a guy that his dad took a rifle and wanted to shoot the entire family. Eventually, things got sorted. And they, funny enough, just to make it a bit more maybe light, the story, they went to the therapist. And my friend told the therapist, I don't think it's a good idea that my dad will come here. It's this gay center. Maybe it's not good for him. And the Scottish was like, no, it's fine. And the moment that his father approached the center and saw the gay flag, he fainted. Like, come on.
Why do people faint sometimes?
Yeah, it was too much. And even after he had met the psychologist, he told my friend, you know what, I'm sorry, but I don't think your dad will snap out of it. And then his dad used to call him and make those nasty comments on the phone to him. And even ask him, are you top or bottom?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes. So, and it's here in Sweden. And then I worked with this another teenager where I volunteered, and he said, I can't come out. And I explained, things usually get better. It should be fine. And he said, well, I don't know. My cousin came out and they shot him in Göteborg. And then I just said, well, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be telling. And maybe for you the best.
Maybe you shouldn't come out.
Yeah, and maybe you should just move a country if you want to live your life. Maybe Sweden, close to your family, isn't the place for you. Maybe you could be safe elsewhere.
Toxic environment.
Yeah.
Well, it's depressing. But how can we solve these issues in the future if we're being solution-focused now?
Okay, private life. I can tell from my family. My mom wasn't, let's say, very pro-LGBTQ, but nowadays she is the consultant for the family. She has 11 siblings coming from an ultra-Orthodox family. And I have an uncle who is a rabbi. His daughter was supposed to get married 2 weeks before the wedding. She called it off, and she came out. She's a lesbian. And he had a seizure from that. Anyways, he came to my mom, and she's consulting, and she's like walking in parades. So it's about maybe working with your closest, with your core, and asking when you're not sure about things, and when you're about to criticize something, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why is there need to be a parade, for example? Why does there need to be why does a person speak that way? Before you are making the decisions, take the time to reflect. Take the time to ask questions. And remember that this person has gone through different things, or maybe in history it wasn't so acceptable.
Thank you, Lavie, for joining Heja Framtiden.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Good luck with your work at Tobii. Check out tobii.com.
Correct.
.se. A very interesting company. This is Heja Framtiden. Check us out at hejaframtiden.se and follow us in social media. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.